But yeah, so I am really excited because I know nothing. All I know is that you work in Hope.
I do.
And then when you reached out to me about the Hope movement, you told me what you did, just in real short. I'm like, oh my Lord, what?
Yeah, it's so cool.
So you have to tell me, like what is this that you do?
So, how do I describe what I do? So I've sort of narrowed it down now to helping increase psychological health and safety levels in the workplace using the science of hope.
The science of hope.
There is a science of hope as a sub-science under positive psychology.
Really?
Yeah. So back in the 80s, this doctor out of University of Pennsylvania, Dr. Martin Seligman, I get his name wrong every time, Seligman, was studying traditional psychology, which is to decrease sadness. And he thought, why can't we increase well-being? So instead of going from negative to neutral to positive. So he's the one that founded the science of positive psychology and sort of turned psychology on its head. And through his work in positive psychology, they identified 24 virtues of well-being that crossed culture, that crossed age, like time boundaries, east to west, crossed them all. These 24 virtues were really important for well-being in humanity. Hope is one of those 12 characteristics.
Huh.
Yeah, one of those 24 virtues. And so, hope is what we anecdotally know to be true, right? We know the feeling, we can recognize it, we hear the language. But when I read about this science and all the research that's backed it up, I was like, yes, this is absolutely something I can get behind, because it's evidence-based. It's supported. Dr. Rick Snyder was a gentleman who worked under Dr. Seligman, and he was really the first pioneer of the science of hope. And he discovered his theory is called hope theory, which really super resonated with me, because I really feel like hope is action. Hope is an action word, and because without action, hope is just a wish. Mm-hmm. Right? We can wish to win the lottery, but if we don't buy a ticket, we don't take that action to buy a ticket, we're never going to win the lotto. So hope theory is goals, which is clearly expectation of future positive result, plus agency thinking, which is our internal motivation to achieve that goal, plus pathways thinking, which is our ability to find alternatives to overcome the barriers that are going to get in the way. So goals plus agency plus pathways gives you hope.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm just blown away. I don't know if you know, when we started the Hope movement, it was called Hope Talks. It still is.
Yeah.
Our whole premise was it's not enough to hope that things are going to get better. We need hope in the form of a plan.
Yeah.
And look at you.
So alive.
Science backed up, people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
So how does this, like, when you think about yourself, how does this help someone?
Oh yeah. So hope found me. You know, people say to me, how did you get into this line of work? I didn't. This line of work found me. Huh. I really believe that hope is very, very personal. People's definition of hope is very, very personal, and it can be quite different. But for me, hope is about taking that action. It's the expectation of future positive result based on taking action over the things I can control. So action, future, and control. All three of those things are really, really key for me. And I think that's how it translates into practicality. There's a lot outside our control. Clearly, we can't control a lot of things. So often, that makes us feel helpless and then can translate down into personal hopelessness as well. Mm-hmm. But if we can try to focus on what we can control and taking actions, no matter how big or small those actions are, but take actions towards the goals we've set and that progress, that's how we can make it personal and can continue to increase our hope.
Wow. Because hope is a real there's not a lot of hope right now,
Mhm.
especially in young people. You know, my son said to me, he's 13,
Yeah.
so that's quite the age. But he said, you know, Mom, there's just not a lot of hope out there
Yeah.
in the world that I live in. And so what you're offering is actually how they can get it, rather than we need to give our young people hope,
Yeah.
and then it just ends.
That's nice. How are we going to do that, people?
Yeah. Or our workplaces, like you said, you know, like you take workplaces from that hopeful to action.
Yeah. Well, and so I don't think hope is ever missing. Like, I don't think it's gone. It might just be hidden. It might just be down deep. Someone described it to me as hope being the sock puppet in the light at the end of the tunnel. You know, being able to see that that the light at the end of the tunnel isn't a train, for example. And so I also believe that hope can be learned. So regardless of where your hope level is, where it starts, you can increase it. It's contagious. You can borrow it from others. You know, people who are modeling behavior out loud, modeling hopeful behavior out loud, if you're not feeling awesome today, go steal some of theirs. Right? And then you can pay that back someday when you are feeling hopeful. Because our levels fluctuate, right? We don't feel awesome all the time. Doesn't mean we've lost hope. It just means that our hope levels are lower today than they might be tomorrow. And so what I teach in organizations is at the individual level, where I teach people to set those goals, to look towards that positive expectation for their future, and then teach them how to connect to their why, to their passion, to that intrinsic motivation to accomplish that goal, and then look for alternative ways to get there, to overcome the barriers to get there. And how, by taking care of the people in an organization, how that elevates the employer is because if people feel supported, they're going to take care of your company too, right? If you take care of your people, they're going to take care of your company.
Yeah.
And so my approach is very much at the individual level to benefit the organization as well.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
That makes total
Yeah.
sense. You impact the individual, you impact the organization.
Yeah.
I think that's brilliant.
Well, and the flip side, if you've got an organization that is investing in their people, the people are going to feel good about that, right?
Yeah.
It's not just walking the talk. It's not just saying, we know this is important, but here's another deadline with less people to do the work, right? If an organization is investing in their people see that too.
Isn't that the truth?
Yeah.
Well, I remember reading a book a couple years ago. It's called Lost Connections.
No, I don't know that one.
Oh, Johan Hari. So he's the guy who did the TED Talk that everyone was circulating around on. The opposite of addiction isn't sobriety, it's connection.
Totally.
So he wrote a book. He traveled the world. He's more of a sociological type of mind.
Yeah.
And he traveled the world and found out through his hypothesis that a lot of people are depressed because they've lost their connection with purpose, aka hope. They've lost their connection with meaningful work and meaningful relationships. And when I read the book, you would love it.
I would.
Because I just leaped out. I'm like, yes, this is huge. This
Yeah.
is, if we can give people hope, and hope in the form of a plan of how you're going to get there, purpose, and then people come alive. Who does not want to feel alive?
Totally. Who does not want to feel accomplished and working towards something that's going to bring them joy and fulfillment and compassion, all of those things.
Yeah. I'm so fascinated that hope is a science. I just had no idea.
Yeah.
And so I'm wondering, in terms of thinking about creating a nationwide movement of hope, and I'll be the first to admit I'm the director of this, and I have no flippin' clue other than I just bring people together.
Yeah.
That's it.
You're the connector.
That's it. That's my gift to the world, and that's all I can do. But when you think about how do we create a change in mental health? That's my sock puppet.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah.
That's all I got, Lindsay.
Where I think we're going to continue to be really successful is modeling this behavior out loud. Keep having these conversations, keep showing up and modeling it out loud. My mental health counselor talks to me about that all the time. He says, you know, I was, why can't people change? Why can't people do what I want them to do? They're like, and he says to me, Linz, you need to do what's right for you and model that behavior so other people can see that it's happening, and then maybe they want to do that, or they find that it resonates with them in some way. In a subtle way. I'm not suggesting that we go out and say, look at me, here's what I'm doing, and here's why you should follow along. But it's more like, if we can model healthy behavior, that we are trying to grow, that we are trying to share our story, to influence somebody in a positive way, to inspire somebody else to speak their story, that out loud behavior, I think people will see and want to emulate. Right? If we see that it's okay, then we're much more likely to take the risk or take the chance or build the courage to have those conversations or to make that change or to take that action ourselves as well.
Yeah.
I think it really. Think of the people that are the models in your life, right? Even if they are probably modeling behavior out loud that you want to emulate. That's probably why they're there, why they're a mentor of yours, right? And why they're a model of yours. And so if we have more of those positive role models out there to model against, how can that be bad?
Yeah.
Right? That's where exponential growth happens, I think.
Right. Which is totally why I do believe with all my heart that mental health is created socially.
Totally.
I really do.
Yeah. And that connection. The
connection, yeah. It's interesting because what came out of the conference, the incubator, was this idea that we want people to start sharing their stories. We don't want the stigma anymore. We want people to be open. And people are. They're being open.
Yeah.
And then we're going, oh, like I didn't expect that. I don't know what to say to that. People are like, we want to support, but we don't know how. Yeah. And so this is where I really do feel like there needs to be actionable plans in how to create this mental health, this hope, because I think we all are very well intended.
Yeah.
You know, we all have great intentions. We all want to be great people. We want people to be healthy. We all like it on Instagram. But when it comes down to the crunch, you know, we're finding ourselves a little stuck.
Yeah.
What would you say to that? What would you say with creating support?
Two things came to mind. The first one to create psychologically safe spaces for people to show up in. Yeah. Psychological safety might be a term people are unfamiliar with, and it's the idea of being present in an environment, in a space, in a workplace where you feel like you can be heard, that you can speak up in all the ways. So you can come to your leader and say, I'm not feeling awesome today, I need to take a mental health day. 2, I have this innovative idea to solve this problem we have in our organization, what do you think? It's about creating a safe space for people to talk out loud, regardless of what they want to talk about, right? To create that safe space. So first, I think we need to learn how to create those safe spaces. Education being complementary to that, so that's kind of my second point, is we need to teach people how to do this stuff, right? We say, let's talk. How do we do that? How do we open the door to that conversation? Do we say, I'm sad today? Maybe. Or that might be awkward, you know? We need to teach people how to have those conversations and then how to be on the receiving end of those conversations. So how do we respond if our sister, our colleague comes through the door and says, I feel sad today? You know, what do we do with that? And even if we intellectually know, until it happens to you, you really maybe don't know, or it's uncomfortable, and so you don't respond in a way you think you want to, or you thought you would when the situation comes up. So I think, like, again, that modeling behavior, whether it's a role play or a case study or something, where we can help people, we can learn, we can teach people how to speak, and then also how to receive.
I agree. I agree. I think that we're finally at that place where there's more openness now than ever about people sharing their journeys. And I think that's just our next stage in this whole mental health related situation we're in as a culture. That this is the cusp we're on now, is how do we do it. And the great thing is that Lindsay knows a lot about the how.
I do know about the how, and I'm learning more every day. You know, I that is also something really cool about this work. I mean, you know about hope, but you didn't know about the signs of hope.
No.
You know, I had a conversation with a woman for my podcast yesterday, and she blew my mind with things that I didn't know. And it's so cool because every connection we make, we learn something new. Education and knowledge is really huge in my own hope journey. And so, yeah, I really feel like the more connections we make, the more we learn, the more we can pass that on. I think, you know, that helps to spread the movement also.
It does. We really do, like, we need one another.
Yeah.
You know, each one of us, I was at a conference and this man I have never met. It was literally like, he's leaving the room, I'm coming in. Hi, how are you? How was your session? My name is, and then he gives me this puzzle piece. He brings out a little puzzle piece out of this sachet that he had.
Yeah.
And he's this Indian man, so I'm like, oh, mystical man.
Yeah.
And he brings out this puzzle piece and he gives it to me. He says, I want you to have this. And what does this mean for you? And I'm holding it. I'm like, well, I guess this is my piece of the puzzle. This is my part.
Yeah.
And he said, yeah, that's important, but the thing I want you to focus on is the sachet. That piece is now missing.
Ew,
so when you're not in the puzzle, doing your part, when you're separated, we miss out. We're missing your piece. I'm like, who are you? And why are you telling me this? And do you know what I do? Like, it was just the weirdest experience. But now I carry that little puzzle piece around in my wallet to remind me. And we really are, like, we carry pieces for one another. And you carry such an amazing piece.
Well,
I think that bringing a message of hope with action, of how people can attain it, I mean, I think everyone should probably get on the internet and book you now.
Yes, please do.
Because if you're an entrepreneur, you know. So,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I love, like, the action piece, the evidence-based piece. There are over 2,000 studies now that prove that hope is the biggest contributing factor to success in school, success in life, better productivity in the office, community building. Like, I could go on. The number one predictor, 20% increase in productivity at work, an entire letter grade at school. This one particular study that was super compelling to me, law school kids in like going through their undergrad in law school to take their LSAT to go into actual law school, like lawyer school. Their hope score was a bigger predictor of success on their LSATs than their marks in their undergrad. So how they felt about their potential future, where they were in their hope levels, was a better predictor of success. Crazy. So cool.
That is cool.
Right?
And that's also eye-opening, because I just from I'm coming out of the school
Right, yeah.
atmosphere,
Yeah.
and the hope isn't high.
Yeah.
In young people.
Especially in our economy right now.
Yeah. And just the pressure of grades and what am I going to do next, and then just social norm, and then normal teenager stuff.
Right, that's right.
But I feel like there's so much more on them now, and so their hope's not so high.
Yeah.
So we need to do something about that.
And I think that's where hope theory comes in for me, helping them to identify their agency. Where's their, what can they connect to on their intrinsic motivation to the goal that either themselves or society or their parents, their expectations that they have for themselves. How can they connect that intrinsically inside? Help them to find their agency, I think will help them increase their hope levels.
Well, where can people find you?
Yeah, well, so I have a website called expertinhope.com. I have a podcast. It's called Hope Motivates Action on Apple and Google and Spotify. And then you can find me on all the regular social media kind of places. But yeah, my podcast is a really great way just to get to know more about who I am and what I do. There are some unbelievably cool people that I've interviewed on there. I interview inspiring people who have used hope to motivate action in their lives. So I have interviewed my own mental health counselor, so cool. A lady who's created a lipstick company to help cancer survivors. A woman whose husband is transgender and came out to her in her marriage and what that looks like for her and her family. Just some cool, super inspirational humans. So cool.
Wow, we'll have to have a listen because that does sound very intriguing.
Yeah, it's really neat. It's really cool. It's my favorite part. Talking, clearly, and doing these podcasts is absolutely my favorite part.
Well, you know, it's the connection with somebody when you're having a conversation. It is. It's so fun.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah, well, thanks for doing this.
Thank you so much for having me. What a great opportunity.
Oh, hey, no, for sure. And keep spreading the hope and how to do it. And yeah, that's wonderful.
Well, and I am involved in your movement, so whatever I can do for you, let's stay connected for sure.
Okay. I have ideas.
I bet you do.
Of course I do.